Welcome back to ACB Wrestling Talk, your main source for wrestling news and wrestling discussions. I'm, of course, your host, Alexis Carrillo, and let's get into some wrestling talk. Today is Friday, January 10th, 2020, so the first Friday of the week, of the week for wrestling talk. So now we have to discuss what is going to transpire tonight on SmackDown on Fox. And one of the biggest questions going into SmackDown, and frankly, at least for me, going into WrestleMania, is could Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania be considered a dream match? Could it be considered the perfect dream match for the current situation that WWE is in? And it's quite a big question to ask myself and you as the audience, because just a week ago I posted 5 goals for WWE in 2020, which you should check out right here on the YouTube channel, in which I stated that the SmackDown main event at WrestleMania should be the big dog, Roman Reigns, challenging for the Universal Championship, but it shouldn't be against Daniel Bryan, it should be against the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. And now, there are some doubts. I will admit that there are some doubts, because last week on SmackDown, we got a little bit of a backstage confrontation between Reigns and Daniel Bryan, which elevated speculation on this match. It's a match that they've been teasing ever since last year, ever since, you know, we had that entire Daniel Bryan, Eric Rowan, Roman Reigns storyline that really only led to Reigns and Daniel Bryan tagging. It didn't lead to a match between them. So, eventually, they're gonna have to clash. And one of the questions I pose right now is, which one is less of a threat to Roman Reigns as a fan favorite? That, at least to me, should be the biggest factor in mind to consider in terms of who he should be facing for the Universal title at WrestleMania. There's no doubt to me that Reigns will be challenging for the Universal Championship at the granddaddy of them all, at the show of shows, but the real question is, should it be against Daniel Bryan or should it be against the Fiend Bray Wyatt? Which one would cause the fans to react in a more positive manner to the big dog? Because for the first time in a very long time, Roman Reigns is actually really over with the crowd in terms of not getting boos. It's very hard to boo a guy who comes back from, you know, his circumstances. So they do have to consider that. If you ask me, I still think it should be Roman Reigns versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt, but, you know, you can't go wrong with the fans. Last year, fans had a lot to do with Kofi Kingston and Kofi Mania heading into the show of shows, so who knows, anything can happen. There are reports online that the WrestleMania card itself is not set for the first time in years. It's January, we're heading into the Rumble, and the WrestleMania card is not set in stone as of yet, so a lot of things to consider, but what do you think? You know, I'm going with the Fiend Bray Wyatt still against Roman Reigns. You might have a different answer. You might agree with me. You might think Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns might be the perfect dream match for WrestleMania. Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comment section below. Not only that, but, you know, that was a little bit of speculation due to the fact of what we saw last week on SmackDown, but Roman Reigns still has to deal with King Corbin. He still has to deal with Dolph Ziggler. And the fact is, Corbin and Ziggler now face off tonight against the returning Usos, who made the save last week for Roman Reigns, for their cousin, for their family. And it seems like Reigns and the Usos are going to be tagging along for the ride for quite a while, at least for the foreseeable future. And we know when Robert Roode is able to return, he'll be inserted back into this feud like if nothing happens, 6-on-6. So you do have to consider that. Daniel Bryan is still embroiled in his rivalry with Bray Wyatt. There's still the question of, can he defeat the Fiend Bray Wyatt at the Rumble for the Universal Championship? I will get to that later on in the month when we have our big Royal Rumble prediction show. But other than that, we got to look at the fact that tonight we've got another episode of the most must-see television, the most must-see show on television today, and that is Miz TV. And he has his former dirt sheet partner in crime, John Morrison, who made a very quiet, very surprising return to WWE last week coming out of Miz's locker room. Just that brief moment that was all we saw of John Morrison. But it does seem like they could be reforming the dirt sheet. It's either that or we're going to have Morrison versus The Miz at WrestleMania. It's one of those two things. Frankly, I prefer if Morrison and The Miz reform their tag team, give current fans a little taste of what we had all the way back in 2008 and 2009. Because other than that, there isn't really much there isn't much to do with Morrison versus Miz when most of the fan base right now doesn't really know their past. So I'm fully expecting Morrison to join forces with The Miz tonight on Miz TV and reform their tag team. And they're going to be a heel tag team. They were called the Dirt Sheet. The Miz TV had a very heelish reaction last week on SmackDown, so they're starting to turn those stones. So overall, that's what I'm expecting from Miz TV tonight on SmackDown. And now we move into the women's division, which, if you ask me, leaves a lot to be desired in terms of SmackDown, in terms of the fact that there are really only two very established stars on the SmackDown roster. Well, three, but one's in a tag team with Nikki Cross, of course, Alexa Bliss. The other two are the current SmackDown Women's Champion, Bayley, and her partner in crime, her loyal friend, Sasha Banks, who goes one-on-one with Lacey Evans tonight on SmackDown, and that pretty much confirms that Lacey Evans will be challenging Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble, be it the kickoff show or be it on the actual pay-per-view itself. That is yet to be confirmed, but as of right now, WWE's priority right now should be to really build up the SmackDown Women's division, because, like I said just a few moments ago, it's lacking in terms of star power. It's not lacking in terms of talent. You've got Lacey Evans, you got Ember Moon, you've got Tamina, you've got Carmella, former SmackDown Women's Champion in her own right. You're trying to build up Dana Brooks, and Nikki Cross is definitely someone who we should be paying attention to, but other than that, none of these women are ready to actually carry the division, especially not to carry it on the road to WrestleMania. I fully expect Sasha Banks and Bayley to face off for the SmackDown Women's title at WrestleMania. That's something I've been calling out for months now. So, other than that, we also get another look at the Mandy Rose and Otis storyline. You could call it, don't mean to offend Otis at all, but this is kind of a retread of the Beauty and the Beast storyline. One thing that is for sure, it's that it's getting sympathy points for Otis, and it's getting Otis over. He was already the most over in terms of his tag team. As much respect as I have for Tucker, Otis is a real star. Otis is someone who you need to pay attention to, and we'll see where this goes. We'll see if Mandy Rose eventually turns babyface and joins up with the team of Heavy Machinery. That will definitely put Heavy Machinery on a new level. And again, they do need to build up their tag team division. All in all, one of the biggest goals for 2020 in terms of SmackDown is to build their roster. They have some stars, they have some star power, that are currently established right now, but they have so many young talent that is, in prime position to be someone on that roster, someone that you want to watch, but it all depends on creative control. And in a transition into SmackDown, as I've been doing this entire week, we've been talking about, listing the 5 superstars on each major brand in professional wrestling today in North America to look at in 2020, and tonight, SmackDown is not going to be the exception. Number 1, you gotta look at a returning Elias. Who wants to walk with Elias? And that is clear. Every single WWE fan out there wants Elias to succeed. They want Elias to be the big star they know he can be. The problem is, creative really dropped the ball when they turned him babyface and started having him pander to the crowd and ask for their opinion, when, you know, he was already getting over just by, just by dissing the crowd, just by disrespecting the crowd. The crowd loved that. You know, it's very hard. You know, they're nowhere near in the same position, but, you know, I kind of equalize that to what The Rock had in the Attitude Era. The Rock got over because he was so damn good and so damn entertaining on the mic and in that ring. He disrespected the fans every single time, and the fans, they didn't care. They were entertained. They loved the character, and they just got on board. And eventually, creative, you know, just flipped him over, and The Rock didn't change. He just directed his attention to the heels. Which is something that they should have done with Elias. They didn't. They did what the tried and true babyface formula of, oh, you're a babyface now, you put over the town you're currently in. You ask for the audience's opinions. You start telling crappy, corny jokes. Hopefully, you know, that changes. And, you know, Elias, I haven't seen him in the ring ever since his return just a few weeks ago on SmackDown, but he is definitely someone who the SmackDown creative team should have as a priority. Number 2, we've got to look at Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali, who had a big year heading into last year's WrestleMania season. Unfortunately, he got injured. It happens. It's professional wrestling. And Kofi Kingston took advantage of that. Fans got behind Kofi Kingston, and that's what happened. Overall, the past year after that entire injury for Mustafa Ali hasn't been the best. He has had some matches here and there, some programs, some rivalries. He made a run for the Intercontinental Championship. That didn't go so well. He was a part of the Survivor Series team that won just a few months ago for SmackDown. He wasn't a survivor, but he was a part of that tag team. But overall, Mustafa Ali, I've said this in the past. Mustafa Ali, like Buddy Murphy, like Cedric Alexander, like Aleister Black, like Humberto Carrillo, like many before. He is a young guy, a young talent in that ring who can get over with the crowd like that. He just needs the right storyline, the right program, and the right opponent to go along with it. Let's see if creative can figure that out, because that's far above my pay grade. Number 3, we look at the returning John Morrison. And boy, am I excited to see the Friday Night Delight back on WWE television. This is a guy that WWE had high hopes for all the way back when he was a part of the roster, almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago, before he left. And one of his biggest weaknesses back then were his mic skills. He just wasn't charismatic on the mic. It didn't seem like he had enough confidence in himself to really be a wordsmith in the middle of that ring. But, you know, I've watched him on Impact Wrestling. I've watched him on Lucha Underground over the years, and he's improved quite a bit, which is why I want him to turn heel. You know, turning him heel might bring back that Johnny Impact, that Johnny Mundo we saw in Lucha Underground, and that's definitely the entertainment value that you should be bringing to WWE. Is there value to him as a babyface? Of course. But he is not going to be in a prime position to challenge Bray Wyatt or Roman Reigns or Daniel Bryan as a top babyface. Maybe, if he were to remain a babyface, he might make a run for Shinsuke Nakamura. But other than that, I expect great things for John Morrison this year. He is just that damn good. Not to take it away from Triple H. But, yeah, John Morrison should be someone that we should really keep our eyes on for 2020. And then we move on to the tag team division, and that is, of course, Heavy Machinery. We've got to look at Otis and Tucker. That's a tag team that should be in a very, very prominent feud by the end of 2020. They should be in a very prominent position in terms of the SmackDown tag team division. And I think maybe, you know, Mandy Rose joining them as the valet might be the key to that success. They're building towards that right now. So hopefully they get to it. But other than that, you know, Heavy Machinery with Otis and eventually Mandy Rose in that tag team might equal entertainment. It might equal fans getting behind them, and eventually, New Day versus Heavy Machinery might be some sort of a big match in the tag team division to look forward to. And finally, I've spoken it at the beginning of the show, the SmackDown Women's Division needs a lot of building. And one superstar to look at in 2020 for the SmackDown Women's Division is definitely, most definitely, someone who should be in talks to be SmackDown Women's Champion, and you should have no doubt about, is Ember Moon. Now, she is currently out with an injury. I do not know in what time frame she might be making her return to SmackDown, but when she does, she should make a big impact. She should be one of the top stars on the SmackDown Women's Division. She's proved that on NXT. Whenever she does appear on WWE television, fans get behind her because she has that aura, she has the in-ring work to back it all up. She just needs, again, this is very important in sports entertainment and very important in professional wrestling, she just needs the right storyline. She just needs the right avenue and the right opponent to get to that level. But Ember Moon is definitely someone to look forward to in 2020. So those are my 5 SmackDown stars to look at in 2020. Like I said it in the past, like I said it back on Monday. Who knows if these 5 stars are going to be remaining on SmackDown by the end of 2020 with this entire brand extension and drafts going on, which is just ridiculous to me. But those are the 5 stars I would look at in 2020. If you have a different list, if you would like to modify my list, go ahead and do so on the comments section below. And for the first Wednesday Night Wars, we've got to give it to AEW Dynamite, who topped NXT in viewership. And honestly, I can't fault them for that because Dynamite did put on a better show than NXT. Especially with that entire Jon Moxley and Inner Circle review and in-ring segment. Fans were just gonna tune in just to see what kind of segment was going to go down with that. But other than that, NXT can eventually get to it and catch up to Dynamite. Dynamite drew a total of 947,000 viewers, which is pretty impressive because it's damn close to the million viewers that they should be drawing week in and week out like that. Easy, no sweat. Against NXT's 721,000 viewers. Now, this could also be a matter of, Dynamite had something to build upon. On January 1st, they had a proper show. Whereas NXT, who I believe on January 1st drew about 500,000 viewers, they had a Best of 2019 year-end awards, which, again, didn't draw many fans to tune into that show. So, they're gonna have to rebuild their storylines, rebuild their fan base in terms of competing with Dynamite. But all in all, 2 very good shows to start off the year 2020. Now we move on to the first big pay-per-view to hit 2020, and that is, of course, Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view to take place this Sunday, January 12th, in Dallas, Texas. One thing you all know is that I am a big fan of Impact Wrestling. I tune in. I've been a big fan of Impact Wrestling for over 10 years now. Well, not exactly 10 years. Exactly 10 years now. But with that said, gotta say it, gotta call it as I see it. Hard to Kill 2020 is a B-level pay-per-view. It just is what it is. When you have matches that could be easily just be a part of a regular run-of-the-mill routine Impact Wrestling episode on Access TV, that's what you kind of get. And there's nothing wrong with a B-level pay-per-view. It serves its purpose to either begin feuds or end feuds. It serves its purpose regardless. But, should fans really spend their hard-earned money on this pay-per-view, that's up to each and every single one of them. If you ask me, I've got two reasons why I won't be spending money on this pay-per-view. Number one, like I said, it's a B-level pay-per-view. There's one, maybe two matches I'm really interested in. That's not enough to get me to buy the pay-per-view. And number two is the fact that monetary reasons prevent me from purchasing this pay-per-view. So other than that, let's go right into the predictions. And we've got to start off with the most obvious ones, the most predictable ones, the matches that, you know, could be mistaken for a routine episode of Impact Wrestling. Number one, here we go, Ken Shamrock versus Madman Fulton. I'm not even going to go into the storylines purposes of this, because there isn't much to it. And if Madman Fulton doesn't get the win, if he doesn't get the easy win over Ken Shamrock, then I don't know what the hell they're doing in Impact Wrestling. Gotta give it to Madman Fulton in a very dominant fashion. Ken Shamrock is only here to serve his purpose, and his purpose is to put over the young guys. And speaking of serving their purpose, we've got to talk about Rhino, who faces off against the Big Money Moose this Sunday at Hard to Kill. And again, you know, copy-paste situation with Ken Shamrock and Madman Fulton. This time, Moose versus Rhino. Not much storyline. There were some backstage confrontations between them on the latest episode of Impact Wrestling, which led to this match being set. Moose has to get the win over Rhino, hands down. If not, then priorities are really, really off over at Impact Wrestling. Number 3, Brian Cage versus Rob Van Dam. Now, this is a tough one, because for the first time since 2006, I've been interested in anything Rob Van Dam has had to do with Impact Wrestling, but he's facing off against the former Impact World Champion in Brian Cage. He's facing off against a guy who ended the biggest pay-per-view event of the year last year on top of the world. So, you know, putting those into balance, gotta give it to Brian Cage. Not to say that RVD is not going to put up a good fight. Katie Forbes is going to definitely be involved in the match. But Brian Cage should come out with the victory. Eddie Edwards versus Michael Elgin for the Call Your Shot Trophy. This is a match we just saw this past Tuesday on Impact on Access TV. It wasn't for the Call Your Shot Trophy. So, you know, Michael Elgin beat Eddie Edwards. The real question is, who does Impact Wrestling want to elevate quicker? Who do they want to get to that next level faster? Eddie Edwards or Michael Elgin? The Call Your Shot Trophy, of course, allows any Impact Wrestling superstar to call their shot, which means they could challenge for the tag team titles if they find a partner. They can challenge for the Exhibition Championship. They can challenge for the Impact World Championship. And I'm assuming, being that the main event for this Sunday's pay-per-view at Hard to Kill is intergender, I'm assuming the Call Your Shot Trophy allows either Edwards or Elgin, whoever were to come out the victor, to challenge for the Knockouts Championship as well. If you ask me, I think Eddie Edwards should retain the Call Your Shot Trophy for reasons that I will give a little bit later on in this preview, in this prediction show. But that takes nothing away from the fact that this is a match that they gave us on Impact Wrestling just a few days ago. The stakes are a little bit higher, but nothing to it. Nothing to it. Gotta give it to Eddie Edwards, retaining his Call Your Shot Trophy. A very interesting match. One of the matches I'm most interested in for Hard to Kill is the North defending their Impact World Tag Team titles against the team of Rich Swann and Willie Mack. And I've got to say, I'm going to throw it out there, Swann and Mack become Impact Tag Team Champions this Sunday in Dallas, Texas. Not because the North is a bad tag team, not because I think the North's time as on top of the Impact Tag Team division is over. I just think that you can't have, in professional wrestling, you can't have one tag team, one superstar, one guy or girl or faction just run through the entire thing more often than not. And that is the case with the North. I think they will lose the tag team titles. They'll eventually regain them. I have no doubt about that. But for right now, the right call would be to have Rich Swann and Willie Mack dethrone them for the Impact tag team titles. So that is what I am going with. Knockouts Championship 3-way. Taya Valkyrie defends her Knockouts title against Jordynne Grace and against ODB. Now, again, just going to throw out my prediction. Taya Valkyrie retains her Knockouts Championship by pinning ODB. Simply because they've been booking Taya Valkyrie really, really bad on Access TV quite a bit now. They're having her lose matches. They're putting her in comedy segments. And I get it. She's a heel. That's her character. But let's not forget, she is the most dominant Knockouts champion of all time. She is the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time. And if you want to establish Jordynne Grace as, the top babyface in the Knockouts division, you do it in a one-on-one match. So right now, I think ODB might get in Jordynne Grace's way. So let's just allow Taya Valkyrie to keep going on with her title. Taya gets the win with the pinfall victory over ODB. Ace Austin versus Trey Miguel for the X Division Championship. I can honestly say I'm not invested in Trey Miguel, well, just Trey, as a babyface. I'm not invested in him as a potential champion as of yet. I like him as a part of the Rascals. If you ask me, I think I'd get behind Desmond Xavier a whole lot more. But for right now, Ace Austin gets his win. He retains his Triple X Division Championship over Trey in a fantastic match that might open the show. It could be opening the show this Sunday. But other than that, Ace Austin retains his title. And now we get to the main event of this pay-per-view, where the self-proclaimed Death Machine himself, Sami Callihan, defends his Impact World Championship against longtime rival Tessa Blanchard. And the real question is, will Impact Wrestling have the guts to pull the trigger and have Tessa Blanchard, a knockout, a women's superstar, a female superstar, become Impact World Champion? And to me, there's just one big factor preventing that from happening, because if it wasn't for this factor, I think there's a pretty damn high chance that Tessa Blanchard walks out as Impact World Champion. And that factor is that her contract, per reports that I've read online, should be coming up pretty damn soon in February of this year. She has yet to sign a brand new contract with Impact Wrestling, because if she had, Impact Wrestling would have made it public months ago. So the real question is Impact Wrestling stupid enough to place the Impact World title on a superstar who, yes, is so damn talented, like Tessa Blanchard, who has given you so much in the past in terms of pay-per-view and Impact TV, like Tessa Blanchard, but who could be leaving very, very soon? Are you willing to risk Sami Callihan as a main event star? Are you willing to risk Sami Callihan, the Death Machine, and OVE as a whole as a main event and as a credible top world champion just for the shock value of having a woman in Tessa Blanchard become your Impact World Champion? Which, again, if it weren't for the factor that her contract could be coming up soon, she's worked her ass off. She definitely deserves to be in that main event position. But you have to weigh the positives and the negatives. And for me, that means Sami Callihan retains the Impact World Championship at Hard to Kill. There's just no other way. Either Tessa Blanchard resigns with the company, and that gives Impact Wrestling the green light to make her world champion, or You know, you keep Sami Callihan as world champion and you transition him into a feud that's been 2 years in the making for the world title against Eddie Edwards. It's as simple as that. So with that said, what do you think is going to go down at Hard to Kill pay-per-view? Number one, will you be purchasing and watching Hard to Kill this Sunday? And number two, do you think Sami Callihan is going to retain? Do you think Tessa Blanchard might make history this Sunday? What are the rest of your predictions on this Hard to Kill pay-per-view event coming up this Sunday? So with that said, you know, that's been it for this first week of Wrestling Talk in 2020. I've had, you know, one hell of a time just getting behind this desk, on this chair in front of the camera, and talking and discussing about professional wrestling with all you guys. So hopefully, you know, I'm able to do this for the rest of the year, because I just love talking professional wrestling. I've been a professional wrestling fan since 2005, so it's hard to say that, you know, I'll eventually let this go. So with that said, that's been it for me. I've been Alexis Carrillo. Till next time.